Dear learners, I welcome you all to this video lecture. I am Dr. Kanchi Bajpai, an assistant professor, guest faculty here at Pandit Sundarlal Sharma Open University, Chhattisgarh, Bilaspur. In this video lecture, we will be covering the revision of Block 1, that is poetry. I will be covering the revisions of Lecture 1 to Lecture 5 in this video. Let's begin with today's lecture. Poetry in Indian English literature. But before understanding poetry in Indian English literature, we must know the reason for the development of English language. The reason for the development of English language goes to the Macaulay's Minute of 1835. The Macaulay Minute of 1835 was a pivotal document by Thomas Babington Macaulay, recommending that the British government in India promote Western education, science, and literature through the English rather than Sanskrit or Persian. It officially established English as the medium of instruction, aiming to create a class of Indians who were Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. Now, we will see some key aspects of the minute, and these are: first, purpose. Second, the dispute between Orientalists and Anglistics by prioritizing Western knowledge and dismissing Indian traditional education as inferior. Funding argued that all government funds appropriated for education should be spent on English education alone. He proposed educating a small, elite group of Indians who would subsequently disseminate Western knowledge to the masses. It was supported by Governor General of that time, who was Lord William Bentinck, and this led to the English Education Act of 1835. Because of this, there was a cultural shift which led to the decline of the traditional learning systems like pathshalas of that time. English replaced Persian as the language of administration and higher education. While it facilitated access to Western literature and unified the country, it also created a lasting legacy of cultural alienation for many Indians. Now, in part 2 of my previous video lecture of Indian writings in English, I have covered the contributions of Indian English writers, and those were: first, Kamla Markande and her work Nectar in a Sea. Second one was Jhumpa Lahiri and her work The Namesake. Third one was Bharti Mukherjee and her work Jasmine. Next, I have covered A House for Mr. Vishwas, written by V.S. Naipaul. The God of Small Things, written by Arundhati Roy. And A Journey to Ithaca, written by Anita Desai. I have also covered some prominent works like Gitanjali by Rabindranath Tagore, Birds of Golden Wings, written by Sudha Murthy, and The White Tiger by Arvind Adiga. For the detailed description, you can see my previous videos, and these are Indian Writings in English Part 1 and Part 2. Now, in my third video lecture, I have covered topics like the characteristics of poetry and literary devices. For the detailed description of the characteristics of poetry, you can go and see my third video lecture. And I have also covered further in that video lecture literary devices like simile, metaphor, symbolism, mysticism, and conventional poetry. Now, simile. Simile is a word or phrase that compares something to something else using the words like, or as. For example, face like a mask or white as snow. The use of such words and phrases. Now, metaphor. Metaphor is a word or phrase that is used in an imaginative way to show that somebody or something has the same qualities as another thing. For example, her words were a knife in his heart is a metaphor. Now, symbolism. Symbolism is the use of symbols to represent things, especially in art and literature. Mysticism. Mysticism is the belief in direct personal union or communion with the divine, ultimate reality, or spiritual truth, often achieved through intense contemplation, meditation, or practices. It focuses on subjective, experiential knowledge rather than rational, intellectual understanding, frequently aiming for a sense of oneness or elimination. Now, conventional poetry is a 20th century movement characterized by raw, honest, and an autobiographical writing about personal, taboo subjects like mental illness, trauma, and sexuality, often using a direct I perspective. It breaks the barrier between the poet's private and public life. In this video lecture, I have only given you a brief account of these literary terms. For the detailed description, you can go and watch my video, that is the third lecture of Indian writings in English. Then we have also discussed Suru Dutt's biography and her literary contributions, along with the explanations of the Lotus poem and the themes that are important in this poem. Now, her biography. Suru Dutt, born in the year 1856 and died 1877, was a pioneering Indian poet and a novelist from Calcutta who wrote in English and French, often called the kids of Indo-Anglian literature. Despite dying at 21 from tuberculosis, she produced a remarkable body of work blending Indian mythology with Western literature. She was highly educated, mastering Bengali, English, French, and later Sanskrit. In 1869, she moved to Europe, studying in France and then England, attending the higher lectures for women at Cambridge. As one of the first Indian women to write in English and French, she established a unique hybrid style. The summary of the Lotus poem is that it is a sonnet where love asks Flora, the goddess of flowers, to create the ultimate queen of flowers, ending the rivalry between the rose, which symbolizes passion, and lily, symbolized stately or purity. Flora creates the lotus, which blends the best of both, combining white and red, making it the supreme, unrivaled choice. Key points are: first, the conflict, which is also the main theme of the Lotus poem. The conflict resonates love as Cupid, who approaches Flora for a new queen of flowers, because the rose and lily have long campaigned for the title, supported by different poets. Next key point or the theme is the demand. Love wants a flower that combines the stately dignity of the lily with the delicious perfumed or red color of the rose. Third, the creation. Flora creates the lotus, which is described as both rose red and lily white. The verdict: the lotus is chosen as the undisputed queen, symbolizing a perfect blend of Eastern pride, lotus, and Western romantic tradition, that is, rose. The poem is a patrician sonnet that highlights the superiority of the Indian lotus through the lens of classical mythology. Now, the critical reception of Toru Dutt's poem, The Lotus. The Lotus is overwhelmingly positive, with scholars celebrating it as a masterpiece of Anglo Indian literature that bridges Eastern and Western cultural ideals. It was published posthumously in Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan. The poem is full of lyrical beauty, structure, and profound symbolic synthesis. It highlights the reflection of Dutt's unique position as a poet, bridging Indian tradition with European poetic forms. The lotus is seen as an emblem of harmony, blending the red of the rose, often associated with India, and the white of the lily, often associated with Western ideals. The lotus is interpreted as representing spiritual perfection, divine beauty, and detachment, rising from the mud to remain untainted. It is praised for the presenting the lotus as the queenliest flower that settles the rivalry between the western rose and lily. Scholars often praise the poem as a well-crafted Petrarchan sonnet, consisting of an octave that sets up the conflict, the rivalry between the lily and the rose, and the sestet that provides the resolution, Flora choosing the lotus. The poem is noted for its blending of classical Indian elements with Greek or Roman mythology. Example mentioning Flora, wife of Jupiter, and Psyche, to create an universal narrative. The poem is seen as a rejection of rigid binaries. Instead of choosing one culture over another, the work champions the integration of diverse qualities. The lotus is widely regarded as a significant, concise poem that illustrates Dutt's ability to create lasting, multi-layered symbolism in a short space. In my next video lecture, I will be covering block 2, that is prose, and my first video lecture will be the introduction about the prose tradition, tracing the intellectual and political prose tradition in Indian writings in English. That's all for today's lecture. I will be joining you soon with my next video. Thank you.